the reports by each of the rapporteurs dealing with each of the thematic areas. So from your respective plenary session rooms, we would like to call on each of the teams to go ahead and provide a summation of what those findings are, recommendations, and innovative ideas. So thank you very much. Keep your comments short, straight to the point, and we look forward to receiving a much more detailed report later on. Once again, thank you. So we'll go ahead and take the first report. Kindly identify yourself and the thematic area that you're representing. Thank you. Dorsaf, if you could kindly work with each of the rooms to ensure that the sessions have wrapped up and that we are now ready to take the reports of the rapporteurs. Thank you. Can we have the summations of the first rapporteur, please? Is there somebody online? We can't hear on this end. If there is, kindly ensure that we do have the necessary audio connections. Please go ahead, rapporteurs, identify yourself and the thematic area that you represent and provide us with the summation of your recommendations. Thank you. Again, we are not receiving any audio feedback on this end. Technical team, kindly help us to ensure that we are connected. We have 5 rapporteur reports dealing with securitization of remittances, diaspora bonds, trade and investment promotion, research, innovation, knowledge and technology transfer, and brain circulation. It looks like we do have our first rapporteur first to go. Kindly identify yourself by name, position, title, as well as the thematic area that you do represent. Thank you very much. So let's take our first report. Kindly unmute. We can't hear you. We cannot hear you, please. Our technical team, kindly ensure that we do have the necessary connection, please. Okay, we still cannot hear you. Please, technical team, we need your support. Please engage with the respective speakers and ensure that we do have audio connections before they're ready to go. Let's give that a try again. Sorry about that.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Richard Lee. I'm the Engagement and Capacity Manager at the African Foundation for Development, AFOD, in the UK. I'm reporting back on securitization of remittances. And so we talked about a few things, a lot of things that pertain to the securitization of remittance. We brought out the fact that it's a complex process to go through, but we think it's possible to be done, and we just need to look at critical things to make sure it's done. And some of the areas to look at were regards to the legal side of things and understanding that obviously the banking sector in Africa is not as developed, and a lot more policies need to be done to develop policies around the securitization of remittances and developing the capacity of banks. We ascertain that banks that are Africa-led or Africa-owned in the diaspora or in the different countries they are based can be used to help to facilitate this process. We have to also avoid the over-reliance on foreign legal firms who we agree have the expertise at the moment, but we need to transfer that expertise, probably using diaspora resources who are able to transfer that expertise to local, national, or African-based businesses, banks to do that. We think remittance organizations can be used. One of the reasons why this is also important is we think the exclusivity deals that certain big remittance organizations hold on the continent has to be reviewed so that it is opened up to Africa-led, diaspora-led remittance organizations to be able to help to facilitate this process that is going on, to block the loopholes that are existing in the system. A few country examples that came up from our session that we think is worth looking at is the El Salvador example called Banking Migrants, that looked at the possibility of getting anyone that was remitting money through the banks was contacted by the banks. It became a government policy and helped that process to be done effectively. And through that process, they were able to give out loans and credit through microfinance organizations and smaller banks or the other government banks in the different countries to bring some form of the securitization of remittances to people. We have the country cases of Mongolia, Nepal, and Vietnam that incentivized their, and Bangladesh, that incentivized their diaspora to invest into the government projects for infrastructure, and people took up those things. So AFDB and the African government states need to look into how to incentivize their diaspora to be able to do that. We understand there's the issues of de-risking and a lot of things that need to be done around anti-money laundering processes that also need to be factored into the process. We need a standardized process that needs to be agreed for everyone to start to use that. We thought that if we can prove the concept with one country or one example, with the standardization of things and all the technical capacities, the regulations that need to be done, it will become easy to replicate it in other countries. We also thought that we shouldn't overly regulate the services that are going to be provided. For instance, not requiring that money transfer organizations have a full banking license would help that process as well. And we talked about the use of technology that is existing at the moment. One of our speakers talked about the possibility of using technology to leapfrog, that some of the things that are being done, we can use that to make sure that the technologies that already exist can be adapted to suit the African context that we have. And I think in the interest of time, I would limit my intervention to this, and the rapporteurs will share more of their notes with the team. Thank you very much for your time.
Lee, I just, on behalf of the team here, we just want to say a very big thank you for your intervention and your contribution to this process, along with other members of the team. Indeed, as you pointed out, the securitization of remittances is a very complex process that requires legal and policy frameworks, as well as capacity development to ensure that a lot of our banks can, in a much more professional way, handle this particular area. Indeed, you have echoed the comments, you and your colleagues, that have been mentioned yesterday, as in the over-reliance on legal and financial experts, as well as exclusivity deals with regards to companies that handle remittances. Well, thank you very much for these comments. It's also important to know that the African Development Bank, as well as other DFIs and MDVs on the continent, do have several de-risking instruments, which you, again, for those who are interested in understanding how the African Development Bank works, please visit our website for information on that. There's quite a significant amount of material there. Yes, indeed, to fully functionalize the securitization of remittances, we do need a standardization of regulations with regards to the anti-money laundering. So thank you for that. I was hoping maybe we will in other reports coming up. I was hoping to hear comments with regards to tech, fintech, and some of those other new technologies that are developing, that are transforming the state of global finance. I think, again, each of these areas that you've listed here are worthy of unpacking in other sessions that might follow. But you've given us, again, much food for thought. We thank you, and we thank all of your colleagues and other contributors and delegates who have made these contributions. And Lee, we look forward to receiving the full report from you formally at the end of this session. So we'll now go on to the second thematic issue. Again, kindly introduce yourself, your name, and the thematic issue that you are representing. Technical team, kindly pipe in the next group. If the groups are not ready, then we'll bring this session to a formal close because we are running against time. I think it's in the best interest of each team to provide their reports, and if not, we will bring the discussions formally to a close. Okay, excellent. That's a very known face. Kindly introduce yourself. Haven't seen you in a long while, but good to see you. Kindly introduce yourself and the thematic issue, Ezekiel, that you are representing. Okay, over to you, Ezekiel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oladipo, and thank you for the excellent moderation. And I actually chaired the panel on, or the section on the diaspora bond, and it was quite a very engaging section. There are a few points coming out of this section which are very important for both the bank and the government, and also the countries to take into account. I would also just highlight that a full report will be coming through from the rapporteur after this session. But if the few, points sticking out from our session is very clear, that it is possible to actually leverage a diaspora bond and to leverage a success done by a few countries, India being a case in point, and also Israel. But how do we go about achieving success? One area that was highlighted was that we need to have a structured engagement with the diaspora and also build social capital in that process. So it's not when you need to raise capital, then you knock on the doors of the diaspora. That engagement needs to actually begin much early on to create that trust between and create that social capital between the diaspora and the government. And the bank as well was highlighted as being an institution that can help create those trust intermediaries that can facilitate these processes as well. It was also highlighted that the embassies need to play a very big role in terms of having what we call an organized diaspora representation, because as you know, in some countries, you have fragmentation when it comes to diaspora groups. And one clear example was what is happening in the UK, where you have a consolidated or an organized a diaspora representation called the CANUC, which has done quite well in engaging with the government of Nigeria and few other, even with the governments in these countries. Another important element is that to achieve success, these bonds need to be well structured, structured from a financial point, but even structured in terms of how they are presented. They need to be registered. They also need to be targeting specific investment opportunities that are bankable, ensuring that those investments are going to actually productive assets and that could may be revenue generating, and also ensuring as well that that there is clear line of sight between the use of funds and also how the revenues are targeted. We also had very good recommendation in terms of how you actually can help reduce the risk and what ways the development banks can play, particularly in de-risking some of these vehicles, or helping countries, particularly in terms of technical assistance on how to raise these bonds. Are these bonds better raised by countries? Are they better raised regionally? Is this something that should be raised by the bank, or can the bank also support national governments when they're thinking about this, or even the private sector? Because I think one important point is to highlight that different countries have followed different approaches, and there may be need for innovation on how we actually approach this topic in the continent. India followed quite a different route than Israel. And when you look at the continent, I think our private sector becomes a very big engine in playing a very big role in how to drive development going forward, given the fiscal constraints of government. So how we actually approach the structuring of this on the ground is also something that we should pay attention. So I will stop here because of time, but there will be a lot coming through from the rapporteur's report. It's been a very engaging. I think what is coming out very positively from the interactions is that there's a appetite, there's a positivity in diaspora engaging from an investment point of view beyond just the remittance on the actual development of the continent. So we're really looking forward to how they can play a role, and how the DFIs, particularly African Development Bank, can play a leading role in that process. Thank you very much, moderator, and I hope I've been able to present the key areas of our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel. Thank you for representing the thematic issue of the diaspora bonds. Thank you to you and to the delegates that were part of this session. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you for also highlighting both at the front end and also the back end, the positivity connected to this. Yes, there are challenges, but as you said at the beginning, it is possible to leverage diaspora bonds. And even in the process of identifying challenges many times, therein lies the solutions. So thank you for that, and for reminding us again, and I think this is a message to our governments, particularly on the continent. We shouldn't engage with the diaspora only when we need their financial resources, which tends to be the norm these days. But again, we must be mindful that, you know, on both sides, both in the diaspora and on the continent, we're dealing with very, very savvy investors. Therefore, as you suggested, structured engagements and organic social capital, the development of that is absolutely, absolutely necessary. Thank you very much, Ezekiel, to you and your team. And we will take the next thematic issue. So again, please, as we have had with Lee and Ezekiel, introduce yourself, your name, your position, as well as the thematic issue that you're representing in your report.
Theme 4 is ready.
Okay, over to you. That is Team 4, that is Research, Innovation, knowledge and tech transfer, I'm presuming?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Ashwell Undie from the City University of New York.
Sorry,
I chaired that, and I'll present on behalf of the group.
Could you take your name? Hello. Could you just take your name a little bit slower so we can get a sense of who you are? That was very fast.
Okay, sorry. My name is Ashwell Undie. I'm a professor at the City University of New York School of Medicine, and I chaired this group, this session. So in general, we were in strong support of the idea of a knowledge and capacity development fund. The features of scale, being Africa-owned and Africa-based, were thought to be important to success. There were ideas generated that feed onto the continuity or sustainability of the fund, the scope, as well as the inclusive nature of the fund. There was also general agreement with the idea of establishing an African Continental Research and Technology Agency excuse me, as an institution responsible for implementing the objectives of the KCDF and related initiatives. It was thought important that such an institution would first and foremost engage in setting priorities, engage with existing bodies on the continent, such as the AAU, that are already in the business of supporting research and technology. And that institution would also serve as a rallying point for promoting logistics, for engaging the diaspora, for promoting training and capacity development for different institutions engaged in research and technology. It was thought important that this not be focused on institutions alone. There are non-academic organizations and even individuals that are engaged in innovative and creative activities that could fit into the technology goals that we desire. And so there should be a broad perspective in terms of supporting and welcoming technologies that come out of this. Some critical challenges to explore and opportunities to exploit were identified, and I won't kind of go through all of this, but just to highlight 4 things that were very much emphasized. One is the timeline, the fact that it should be sooner rather than later, because time is not waiting. And we find that a number of the trained experts, both abroad and on the continent, many are retiring, and the generational gap seems to be increasing. The database that is to include diasporans expertise or experts should also look at identifying areas of need across Africa, so that matching expertise will become facilitated in that process. And then there was the idea to take advantage of current web technology to engage with Africa without having to travel there or without depending on sending money. For example, African institutions have courses for which they could benefit from online teaching implemented by our diasporan experts abroad. So such opportunities need to be explored. And then there was the suggestion to sponsor technology internships, so that if African students study abroad, where they do not intend to stay and live, or they cannot, but before they come home, they should be sponsored to participate in internships that further strengthen and broaden their skills before they come home, so that they can be even more useful when they arrive. So these were the highlights from our group, and also including the fact that there are Pan-African university centers, I think about 6 of them across the continent, and these should not be ignored when thinking about how to regionalize some of the resources that may come through this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashwell Undie. Very much appreciated. Thank you for that report coming from the Research, Innovation, Knowledge and Tech Transfer thematic group. Thank you to you and to all of your colleagues who have provided very rich ideas. Indeed, we need to scale up on Africa-owned, on Africa-based knowledge and research moving forward. Again, thank you for highlighting some of the key issues of note, particularly with regards to the Africa Continental Research Institute, which is necessary, a necessary precursor to rallying the promotion of research and tech that involves, as you said, academic, non-academic, and individual players who are at the forefront of innovation, research, and knowledge development. Time indeed is of the essence, and I think one of the things that we've heard constantly throughout the course of the last 2 days is the need to streamline a vast database on the African diaspora, both on a continental level, a regional level, and a national level. Again, dovetailing with some of the other suggestions made, this is a major priority, and each country has to play a lead role, because in the process of doing that, we can potentially aggregate a whole lot faster and bring things to scale. So, on that note, and with the last point being the need, you know, I think if I speak as a member of the diaspora, the challenge many times of being in the diaspora is that we recognize the limitations either due to family reasons, professional reasons, or others, that many times it's not easy to make that leapfrog back to the continent. And for years and for decades, many in the diaspora have lived with a sense of guilt. But we live in a global environment. Technology has changed a whole lot of things, and therefore, each and every one of us can engage with Africa without borders by operating from where you are in very, very creative ways. So hopefully this is something that this summit can help accelerate with the necessary information, necessary communication moving forward. This, again, is a beginning. It's not an end. But with regards to research, innovation, and knowledge and tech transfer, may I make a very quick suggestion? A few months ago, Dr. Adesina and members of his cabinet were in Morocco. And I'd like for you to take a look at what the King Mohammed VI University Polytechnic, it's called King Mohammed VI University and Polytechnic, is doing in the area of coding, in the area of artificial intelligence. In just 10 years, this university is being regarded as one of the universities of the future by many global experts around the world. It's only 10 years old, and it operates on the basis of providing African solutions to African challenges. It's a truly Pan-African university doing amazing stuff. So for those of you who are in this particular track, I highly recommend that you take a look at what they're doing with regards to their research, as well as digitizing knowledge and making that available across several platforms to other African countries. So Dr. Ashwell Indie, thank you very much for your report, and thank you to your colleagues. We'll go on to the next thematic, and if you would be kind enough, the rapporteur, to introduce yourself and the name of your thematic issue, again, we would appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Very, very loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. My name is Dr. Chokmo Chidede.
No, you're going to have to take that a little bit slowly. You know, names are part of the narrative. So let's just take that slowly so we can all appreciate your name. Names are powerful. So please, can you do us the honor?
Name is Tokmo Chidede.
Chibele.
Chidede.
Okay, Tokmo Chidede. Okay, see, we got to get that right now. Thank you very much.
Yes. I'm a digital trade expert at the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. And I can hear myself with an echo in the background.
We can hear you quite clearly.
Okay. I'm representing the thematic area trade and investment promotion. So allow me to highlight some of the key policies and strategies that have emanated from the discussion of this thematic area. So there was an emerging consensus among the participants that there is need to have government-led engagements that are led by the key ministries, missions of the governments involving private sector between different countries, the countries in Africa and also the countries in the diaspora. And also what was highlighted is the fact that there is a need for governments to establish clear and transparent rules and legal systems that enable trade and investment activities in the continent. These rules and regulations, they can be established at the national level, regional level, continental, and international level. And there was an emphasis that they need to be clear and transparent to allow the business community to understand and easily comply with these rules. What was also highlighted is the fact that there is need to avail essential market information for trade and investment opportunities in order to improve market knowledge of the diaspora community and what they need to do to comply with the government requirements and the market standards. The participants also highlighted that there is need to organize joint trade and investment promotion activities between the local community and the diaspora community, promoting business matching events, partnerships, joint ventures between local companies and the diaspora community, and the need also to organize and support the organization of continental, intercontinental conferences and seminars on investment and trade opportunities within the continent, and the need for coordination between key institutions at the national, regional, continental, and international levels for trade and investment promotion to undertake investment and trade promotion activities. And also, most importantly, the fact that there's need to exchange information on other issues of mutual concern relating to trade and investment promotion in Africa. The participants also highlighted the need to have access to affordable risk-adjusted capital, particularly for SMEs, and also the need to build social or human capital or skills, especially in the tech industry. There's also need to build and improve on the key instruments or mechanisms that are there in many countries and in the continent to promote trade and investment opportunities. And lastly, the need to build and strengthen the transport and logistics sector to ensure that we facilitate and promote trade and investment between African countries and the diaspora. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. CY names are important again because I think as you speedily went through that, I would have been remiss if I couldn't thank you properly for again an excellent presentation here, Mr. Tokmo Chidede. Thank you very much for that rapporteur report on trade and investment promotion. You're looking forward to government-led initiatives working very closely with the private sector. You've called for transparent, clear rules of engagements, as well as compliance issues. I guess in this regard, one-stop investment offices are being set up by many governments, and that is something that is highly commendable. Joint trade missions and partnerships, as well as access to affordable risk capital and the strengthening of transport infrastructure. The bottom line is this with regards to trade and investment, and I think this is key for all of our governments, and that is simple. At the end of the day, money only goes where it is made comfortable. So each and every day, resources, financial resources are basically flying over nations and landing in places where they are made comfortable. That is the essence of governments today that are interested in attracting sufficient enough capital, whether that be from global investors or from the diaspora, it remains the same. I also want to use this opportunity to call on our diaspora community as well as governments, again, to consider the strength. I think one of the things that this summit has brought to the fore is that there are quite a number of initiatives that are out there that seek to engage with the diaspora, and that is all fantastic. But in the process of all of this, I think we need to streamline our activities so that we don't dissipate resources, energy, or time. And then on the investor and entrepreneurship level, I think in a global dynamic environment that is constantly in a state of flux, we need to begin to look at partnerships, collaborations, alliances, and acquisitions in order to scale up all that which we need to do. So once again, Tokmo Chidede, thank you very much for excellent representation. We will now take our final thematic issue, which is on brain circulation. So if the rapporteur for that thematic could come to the fore, that would be great. Is that Njeri? Oh, fantastic. I have her right here with me. Please welcome Njeri as she makes her submission, and then I'll be back with you in just a few moments. Njeri, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor, for that. I think there are quite a number of issues that came up from the brain circulation, and I won't repeat because the issue of database mapping is quite key. We need demand and supply side. We need to be able to know where the diaspora is, so we need that. I want to touch on the issue of government and private sector in terms of brain circulation. And one of the key things is the need for government to set up intentional subsidy that can attract the diaspora. For example, give them funding to come and set up labs. We are talking of pharmaceuticals. They can come and set up labs within the countries and develop their own ideas that they have. And this was given by an example from the Asian region, which a program that was started privately, and over the 10 years, it has become a national program that brings people from the diaspora back into the country to be able to do that. And through that, you need to establish two programs, one for the senior brain people who still have some gas to put into the continent, and also the young people who do not have experience. We need to set up programs. That is intentional. The other aspect is the private sector role. You can have cases where the private sector, you have people who are working in the private sector, but they are also working in public sector, including suggestions that you should actually, private sectors can create shareholders from the public sector to own shares in companies like in pharmaceutical companies so that they are able to contribute academically to the institution, and they are also able to create talent. They are able to create patents within the firms. And there is also the need to have not just a national brain circulation, we need regional approach. It's very important for us to have a regional approach because I can contribute to Kenya, I can contribute to Tanzania, I can contribute to Ghana. That is quite key because then we can be able to scale up resources. We can have much more scaled up resources as opposed to having that. And then there is also the need of the agency. How do we cross the barrier between the information asymmetry, between what diaspora know about Africa and what they should know about Africa? I think that's quite key. And that has played a key role in hindrances in terms of having the diaspora come back because they don't understand where the investment opportunities are, and also the aspect of lack of cross-border ease of movement, and the regional approach is quite key. So those are some of the key. The issue of database mapping was mentioned, and the decentralization. We need the expert. We need to know who are the experts, where are they, and how do we bring them. We need to have specialized youth innovation funding and strategies to be able to create spaces for youth to experiment, youth to be able to play around with ideas and use technology. They are very savvy with technology. How do we do that? So I think, Victor, most of the what has been done by the research and knowledge has started quite clearly with what has been said in the brain circulation. Issues of mentorship, issues of creating very strong research forums that can bring diaspora. This was also said yesterday. How do you create think tanks? How does the regional organizations within the continent create a broader think tanks that can bring all these experts from across the board to be able to help us in mentoring? They don't have to come here. We can use the e-technology. We can use the virtual. Those are some of the key things that can encourage brain circulation. The collaboration, regional collaboration between our universities, not just outside of Africa, but even within the continent. We need to encourage that, because then there is knowledge hidden in Morocco, you've just heard about that, that maybe Chad does not know about. And those are some of the aspects of brain circulation. Charity begins at home. We can do it here as we bring in the diaspora. So Victor, over to you.
Jerry, thank you very much for representing the thematic group on brain circulation. Excellent, again, highlighting the need for database mapping, as has been suggested by other groups, intentional subsidies to set up labs. And I just want to use this opportunity to encourage all of our delegates to check out the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation, which the bank has just set up. It will be headquartered in Kigali, Rwanda, and is going to be a game changer for the continent, both in terms of healthcare infrastructure as well as pharmaceuticals. It's called the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation, and I say this for Cynthia and other entrepreneurs who are interested in the healthcare space. As Dr. Akinwumi Adesina has said consistently, particularly post-COVID, Africa can no longer outsource the healthcare security, or Africa can no longer outsource its healthcare security to the benevolence of others. We must take our healthcare security in our own hands, and this is what the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation is all about. I encourage you to check that out and see how best you can engage with the foundation. Thank you very much again, Njeri, for those excellent contributions. I just want to thank you, Njeri. I also want to thank Ashwell Indie, Tokmo Chidede, Ezekiel, and Lee for ably representing each one of your thematics. Thank you so much. At this point, we're going to formally bring our session to a close. Dr. Kevin Urama has been called into a major meeting taking place at the bank right now and is actually giving a presentation. Is he here now? Oh, he's coming down at the moment. Fantastic. He will deliver his closing remarks, so kindly bear with us. He has quite a few things to share with us, but it will be an appropriate way to end our presentations. Personally, I've been inspired by the engagement of all of our delegates. Thankful to your excellencies again for investing your time in the midst of very busy schedules. To each of our delegates, inspired by the work that you're doing in spite of challenging circumstances, thank you so much for all of that. I will hold fort for the next few minutes while Professor Urama makes his way into the auditorium. I gather he's almost here at this point. But for me, it's been an exceptional, exceptional honor, both as a member of the diaspora that has his feet in both worlds, in the United States, as well as Europe, as well as in Africa. As I wait for him, I'll just share a short story with you. I was born in the UK to a Nigerian father and to an Irish mother. Well, she's Irish when she's in a bad mood, but she's English when she is in a good mood. But the interesting thing is that my father named me Bamidele, which in the Nigerian language means follow me home. And if you don't believe that names are powerful, think again. For us in Africa, we believe that names are not just names. Names actually foretell the future. Bamidele means follow me home, and that's exactly what I did when I was 10 years old. And Africa has always been part of my life ever since. I live, I breathe Africa, and that will be the case for the rest of my life. It's exciting to be on the African continent. It's exciting to see the dynamic changes that are taking place each and every day. And I encourage, particularly our diaspora population, sometimes you might want to spend a little less time engaged with social media or newspapers. And the reason for that is you may just get discouraged by the bad news that you have. I was involved in the news world for almost 20 years, and we had a saying which says that if it doesn't smell, it doesn't sell. The news industry is geared to project some of the most negative aspects of society. But I want us to, as we wait on Dr. Orama, I just want to encourage us to begin to look at Africa with new eyes, with a new level of intentional positivity, because in the midst of sight, in the midst of vision, lies opportunities. Will we always have problems? Will we always have challenges? The answer is absolutely yes. Like any other continent, like any other nation, challenges will abound. But the beautiful thing about challenges is once you identify them, you will always find the solution. So thank you for being a part of the solutions to the issues, to the challenges that we are facing on the continent. At this point, I'm going to close with the closing remarks by Dr. Kevin Orama, as he has not been able to make his way to the auditorium. So again, permit me just 2 minutes, and we will wrap our session with this close. Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic community, high commissioners, and ambassadors representing African countries across countries in the Eastern Hemisphere and around the world, honorable ministers and former ministers present, institutional partners, heads of institutions present, African diasporans across the globe, members of the African Development Bank, Board of Directors, senior management, staff colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to deliver the closing remarks for this 10th Global Community of Practice Policy Dialogue, the first one on development without borders, leveraging the African diaspora for inclusive growth and sustainable development in Africa. The G-CoP Policy Dialogue has indeed delivered on its goal. We have listened to our leaders, dialogued with the Africans in the diaspora from the Western and Eastern hemispheres, and we have come up with very tangible ideas around key strategies, instruments, programs, and follow-up actions to accelerate the role of the African diaspora on the African development. On behalf of the African Development Bank Group and our partners, the African Union Commission, the International Organization for Migration, and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, I say thank you. Merci beaucoup. Your Excellencies, with the unreserved support of our leaders, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, Chair of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Vitorino, Director General of the International Organization for Migration, His Excellency Mr. Wamkele Mene, Secretary General, African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, we thank you for all that you have done. On behalf of Africans in the diaspora, I say thank you. Thank you, our leaders, for your great and unreserved support. Our task now is to synthesize the rich wealth of knowledge and proposals we have received from all of you. The rapporteurs are working hard to finalize their reports and the communique, which we will share with you all for comments before they are finalized for submission to our leaders for consideration. I thank all of our collaborators, including leading universities, think tanks, and diaspora organizations in North America, Europe, South America, and Asia for their collective work in co-designing the implementation of this inaugural G-CoP convening of the African diaspora to dialogue on how best the significant assets at their disposal and the skills, experiences, technologies, networks, and more can be leveraged for inclusive growth and sustainable development in Africa. I thank the African diaspora for availing themselves of this inaugural convening. As I said yesterday, the journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step. This is a first bold step, and I firmly believe it is in the right direction. When one stands on the shoulders of giants, they can see far, and we do have giants to stand on. We will stand together to accelerate work on the key thematic areas identified: the securitization of remittances, diaspora bonds, trade and investment promotion, research, innovation, knowledge and technology transfer, as well as brain circulation. We have had an amazing wealth of expertise and experience from several Africans in the diaspora and people of African descent who will help us craft the practical strategies, tools, instruments, policies, and programs to scale their role in these thematic areas for the mutual benefit of the African continent, their countries of residence, and of course, the African diaspora as well. I thank the African Development Bank Group senior management and staff who have worked so hard to make this a reality. These include my very dear sister, Madam Temilola Vaiza Mabogunje, for her unrelenting effort to see this program successful. Our Director General of the President's Cabinet, Mr. Alex Mubiru, the African Development Institute team under the leadership of Dr. Njeri Wabiri and support of Mrs. Kamaria Badiru, and an amazing work team. Thank you. I thank all senior management colleagues for their unreserved support. Also, the African Development Bank's Asia Regional Office, under the leadership of the Director, Hanajiri Takashi, and the unrelenting support of Madam Yuna Choi, who I'm sure most of you know, and the Asia Regional Office team has done a great job in organizing the event for the Eastern Hemisphere. I also thank our long-standing G-CoP partner, Murdoch University in Perth, Western Australia, through my great friend, Dr. David Doppel, chair of the Australia-Africa Research Group. I thank the amazing conferencing, events, communication, and technical teams of the African Development Bank for their amazing, truly amazing work to pull this event together in such a very short time. The interpreters, thank you for 2 days of consistent, long-standing support. You've done an excellent, excellent job. I thank you for all the great conversations. Let us stand together and let us make all of our aspirations, our ideas, and our contributions a reality. Let's make it happen. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you all, and thank you for making this a truly, truly wonderful event. These are the closing remarks of Dr. Kevin Chika Urama, who unfortunately cannot be here at this time. It's my pleasure to have delivered these remarks on his behalf. My name is Victor Oladokun, and once again, it's been my pleasure being with you the last 2 days. Thank you very much for the generosity of your time and for the work that you continue to do. God bless you, and God bless Africa. Goodbye.